My name is Ayeko Ongodia, founder and CEO of Seno.
My name is Abby Gatamu, and I'm the CEO of Cladify Inc.
Hey, I'm Frank Williams. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lingawa.
My name is Hema Valeb. I am the founder and partner at 535 Ventures.
Moses Mukundi. I'm the CEO and founder of Eden Care.
My name is Samuel Adewale, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of OnePurse.
So when you think about what cripples startups in Africa, I think so much of it is around people. I guess the first part is growth. So it's easy to start a company. It's harder to scale a company. And for me, the large part about scaling is growing your workforce, growing your base, right? And I think if you don't bring the right people into your business, that could be a single point of failure. In addition to growth, I think the other one, and it's also tied to people because, again, as you grow and you bring more people in many startups, and I think you've seen with ours, is almost, and this sounds a bit terrible, but it's almost an expiry date to when the founders should be involved. And I think the inability of founders to let go can sometimes also really cause dissonance within the teams. If you're bringing on leadership, are you getting in their way? Are you able to hand over? When is the right time for founders to let go? And I guess the last one is around, and this is also a very tough one to talk about, but I think when you think about what sometimes causes businesses to fail, is the reality that not everybody wants to see you succeed. The underbelly of the industry can sometimes rear its ugly head. And I hope that not everybody goes through it. Unfortunately, I think it happens more than we think, though.
Yeah, so the first one that comes to mind is running out of money, right? Which sounds obvious. You can make a multitude of mistakes as a founder, but the one thing you can never fail to do is running out of money. The second thing that comes to mind in terms of big mistakes that we tend to make is treating untested assumptions as facts. When you're delivering a new product, a new technology, reinventing a business model, you just don't know what the future will hold. We don't pivot fast enough, right? I think for some reason we see pivoting as failure, which ties back into this idea that we feel like we have to have everything kind of intellectually figured out.
Building a company, you're only relevant to the customer if the customer has a problem that you have a solution to. Otherwise, you're building a piece of software, technology, a workflow that doesn't really map to a customer's problem. So that's problem number one. The second problem is not organizing or rallying the right team to solve that problem. If the chemistry is not quite right, it will be difficult to rally the right team to solve the problem. And then the third problem is possibly general to most people operating on the continent, which is figuring out the resources that you need to sort of go through the steps of product market fit and then subsequently scaling the business afterwards.
I think when I first started OnePurse, right, we were mostly bootstrapped. And so as we were earning revenue, I just was reinvesting in what I thought to be the best things to grow my company. And so one of which was in investing in technology, right? But what I failed to realize is, yes, even though I really wanted to build a tech business, right, my business wasn't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily a tech business. And so I did make a little mistake investing a lot of our revenue that we could have used to grow capacity elsewhere or hire more people to scale more in other organic ways. And so how I recovered from that was I decided to invest in myself first to be more technical.
We were pumping a ton of money into certain marketing efforts, which weren't realizing the return that we expected them to. And ultimately what we found was that there were certain lead sources that were incredibly unprofitable. In fact, there were certain leads that we were getting where we were spending more to get the customer than we were making from the customer themselves. What we found was that the customers who were coming to us organically were staying for a lot longer. And so we actually took the money we were spending on the ads and actually invested it into referral schemes and ways to basically incentivize the users who love us to bring their friends and family. And yeah, it's been like night and day in terms of the return on what we're spending to acquire customers now.
We had anticipated an investor would come in, and we hadn't built plan B, plan C for that. and the investor pulled out last minute, like literally 3 days before they were supposed to give us the money, it would have killed company, essentially. It's just we were lucky that one of our large customers agreed to pay some of the contract upfront, and that's how we survived. But I think I learned a very important lesson in terms of you have to think plan A, plan B, plan C for how you plan for investors coming in, and also for how you're thinking about getting the company to profitability and the runway that gives you.
Initially, we thought in order to start taking our first customers, we needed only about mm, the minimum capital requirement and then money for one or 2 years. It turned out that the minimum capital requirement was a lot more than was actually published. It was 3 times more. And the sort of team structure that we needed was 3 times the one we had put in the spreadsheet for investors. But we were able to sort of reorganize and recompose ourselves to avert that disaster.
I brought in someone to be the COO of the company. Very senior, had worked in healthcare before and had very great connections. But what I hadn't picked out that she wasn't a great fit for the culture. I had to sit down with her and explain to her that I think you're great. I think you would be a fantastic COO, but not for the culture that we're building, right? And that conversation was very helpful in making sure that I test very carefully for culture fit for everyone else that came in after that.
A lot of the people I hired early on, right, were close to me, like either close friends or even family. And so, which, in my opinion, I would say that's not a good idea, right? And so it was really hard because it wasn't just firing them; it was also like relationship as well. And so it was quite fragile. But one of the things I've learned moving forward, and something I'm intentionally doing in my business, is hire people for their competence and not familiarity.
I've definitely had to go through that. Not necessarily a co-founder, but someone who's was critical part of the team. And I think what I learned is very early on that they don't fit. But I think in my experience, I took too long trying to make it work. I should have just made that decision like much earlier. I'd have saved myself a lot of time, a lot of stress.
Especially in the early days of building a business, having one or two bad employees can literally tank your entire mission. And so ultimately, one has to weigh up, right, the potential downside from having that mission entirely torn apart versus the true pain of letting go of someone who you've come to know and who might really trust you. And what we've learned is, number one, it's crucially important to set expectations early and to have truly open lines of communication.
If there's one thing I would do different that I, based now on my hindsight, is once you take capital, you have to take it really easy on making that commitment on hiring, because then it might force you to let go of certain people down the road.
In the beginning, I would focus a lot more on my customers and my revenue instead of focusing a lot more on finding investors. I feel like if you get the fundamentals right from the beginning, the investments will come.
I am someone who, wears my heart on my sleeve, and that's a blessing and a curse. On one hand, separating mind from heart. On the other hand, bringing your heart in, and it's not just only about the mind. And I think the balance of when you need to do both.
Community in Africa means you take care of your family, and that means for the business that I run, health insurance, we deal with a lot of family fraud, where someone shows up, puts their fingerprint, but it's their brother that gets healthcare. We had to be a bit more creative to be able to solve something that is very positive for socially in Africa, but it's a very big challenge for the business that I run.
Something that I think has been a core part of my life, and we all know it. Everyone talks about it takes a village to raise a family. It also takes a village to raise a startup. And I think how you build that family life within your business can also be really, really important. Us as a leadership team with kids, we get together once a year. It's partly a strat, but it's partly a way to realign to make sure that, yes, we'll strategize for the business, what's the path we're going to go, what's our goals, what are our targets, our KPIs, but also where are we as people? Is this business that we're building aligned with the life we want to build?
I'm very intentional about building a company culture that puts family first, and so not just like family in the sense of blood, but family in the sense of the people I work with. I want to feel like the family.
You learn a lot more from failures than from successes. Don't let the lesson be lost on you.
Treat your thoughts and your ideas about what your business will look like, what your growth will look like, as assumptions to be tested. And when you find out that things aren't working as they are, pivot fast.
So I guess the best piece of advice I could always say is be prepared for the unpredictable. Be agile, be adaptable. You can plan all you want to, but you have to always have a plan B, a plan C, and maybe even a plan D, and another one in some hat that you can pull out that you haven't even thought of.
Addressing founder loneliness is a really important challenge that I think networks such as Harambe help address.
I co-founded a startup that was acquired by another Harambean business, so that was exciting.
We have drawn on the Alliance for Talent, for mentorship, for guidance. When I need a problem solved, the first group of people that I call on are the Harambeans increasingly.
One that comes to mind is Mrs. Opara, who is an investor, a Harambe and an investor, and was one of our early stage investors at a time when we were very close to running out of money, and literally she coming in and the advice and mentorship that came along with that, with her fund Weave, was transformational for Lingawa.
Being an Harambean for me means a sense of community, a sense of being in a space where you can be your best self and be amongst others who play at a level of excellence that you don't often see elsewhere.
I'd say it means service, yeah, service through my work, service to the continent, through entrepreneurship.
Being a Harambean, for me personally, gives me hope. I think being a founder is stressful, it's intense. The highs are high, but the lows are really low. And having a community of like-minded individuals who are focused and truly believe in the Africa that we're all working so hard to create is refreshing.
It kind of inspires you to think how you can be a better leader and a better servant to your community, to your company, and to the people that have put trust in you.
What Harambe does for me is gives me that mindset that it's possible to change Africa in my lifetime.